This is Bill McMinn from Eagleville Bible Church, and this is the Way to Go podcast, where we talk about faith, family, and daily life, putting the Bible into practical, everyday terms. Welcome to the Way to Go podcast. Bill McMinn, Jay Hutchison. Jay is starting a pornography support group, if I can say it that way. It's a Bible study to help people overcome. It's going to meet at the church on Thursday nights, every other Thursday night, starting on March 20th.
March 20th, yep.
Right,
the
March 20th,
first
7
and
o'clock.
Thursday, or first and third Thursday of
First
each
and third
month is what we're going to do.
Okay, first and third.
See how it
sense.
goes, and hopefully
Sounds
maybe
good.
someday we can maybe meet weekly. But
Well, that's a good target.
Yeah.
I think first and third's a good target. Then you just have to figure out from there which one's the first and which one's the third, and we know you can do it.
Yeah.
So
1, 2, 3.
yeah, pay attention to it. When it came to, this kind of a addiction, I would encourage people, if we were talking, let's say if young people are listening today or anyone, I think my encouragement would be just stay away from it. And I know you want to look at it at times. And I'm not saying like we as kids, it was like this. If somebody was in, let's say you're in 8th grade, somebody has a Playboy, and all this stuff would come, by the way, if it ever did come to somebody's mailbox, it was in brown paper. It was like in a paper bag, so you couldn't see what it was. Right. So that was in the mail. I don't even know if they care about that anymore. But so if you saw a magazine, you would see it, and I might have it for a night. I went down, gave it to somebody. This is how stupid we were, to be honest with you. And so you would pass it around, and then you might not see it anything like that again for a year. Oh yeah, months. A long time, and then you see some. You look at it, but that was my introduction to it was real brief, I would say, and we couldn't access it. And that was one thing when we were young. If we could have watched movies where there was nudity and stuff, yeah. I know we would have done it. I'm not even pretending. Absolutely, I know we would have done it. Yeah. And so fortunately for me, I kind of got into that mentality. Now I'm in Christian college and whatnot, and just kind of leaving that and getting married is like, Bill, you don't have to ever say no the second time if you just don't do it the first time. So if stuff comes on, just look away, just don't pay attention, don't get caught up in it, because I know how sneaky any addiction, any sin is. It's deceitful, and it can get hold of you. The young people today, and for parents too, I think there's so many. The scary thing is these cell phones right here. Like this is a scary, scary thing, because so much access to this. If they even think any of these algorithms, if they see you going for this stuff at all, they are going to pump it into you left and right. As soon as you are taking that step. Like I always try to look at my searches for like Instagram to make sure there's not a bunch of girls in bikinis in there, because there's only one way there would be. Right. So if I'm not looking in there, now lately what I'm seeing is dancers, because I saw this one dancing video and it was this Steven Sayre guy, and it was like all over the place. Like he's got, I guess, really famous, like a swing dancer. So I'm like, oh, that's so cool, that dance. So I watch it. So now I see that, but usually it's hiking or kayaking, but I'll still monitor myself to make sure that stuff isn't getting in there, because I'm going to be asking myself questions if I see that stuff in there, because that means I'm looking at it. But think about these young people, though. They're just going to keep pumping it right over to them if they see them go that direction at all. And it's just easy to see, honestly.
Yeah. And I started kind of similar to you, because I grew up in the 80s and 90s. Friend having a video and borrowing it, and a magazine every once in a while, and then I'd either give it back to him, or I'd look at it long enough and feel guilty and tear it up. But now it's totally different, and I tried it, and I tell my boys, who my youngest two are 10 and 9, and I try to I tell them about it. I don't want to tell them, but I have to tell them, because somebody else is gonna tell them if I don't. But And I also leave open, like no matter what happens. I mean, I don't want to tell them like, go ahead and do that, it's okay. Obviously, they know it's not. At the same time, I don't want them to be in a place of shame where they can't come to me. They feel like they have to hide it from me. So I'm open with my journey with them, and I'm open with my struggles. They see me. If something comes up on TV, a woman comes up there wearing a bikini or something, I put my hand up.
I think that's a good question. So, like, where do you draw the line?
I mean, for me, it's just like any time where I see something that I want to look more. That's where I have to draw the line. If I'm desiring to feast my eyes, that to me is a trigger. And that's when I either, change the channel, don't go to that, get off from Facebook or Instagram or whatever, YouTube. But I also have accountability software on my phone, and I wouldn't have any kind of device without that, because I've been in recovery I've been sober from pornography for it'll be 4 years in June.
This is serious work.
Yeah, and
it really is. It's work. I mean, to overcome this kind of stuff, you got to be serious about it. And like you said, you put those blockers on your phone, whatever the software is, the program. There's different ones you can use that would report you if you were to look at something naughty, questionable. They're going to send it to your friends, and your friends, you're going to have to tell your friends,
or my wife,
or your wife.
In my case, yeah.
Well, in your case, your wife, and that's probably
maybe it's not always the best decision, but for me, that
right.
I know it works. So.
Right. She can put the fear of God in you. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I put it already, because I know what's going to happen. And I don't even want to go down that road.
Oh yeah, I don't blame you.
We were separated many times, actually, but most recently in 2021, after she found out about this. So, honestly, to me almost is like a life and death situation, because I could lose my family if I go down that path again. And, if that happens, I don't know where I would go. So it's just not an option for me.
Right. Look at the consequence. I think in anything, whether it's adultery, pornography, addiction, what are the consequences? If I go down this road, what are the consequences?
Right.
And to look at that and to have that firmly in mind is definitely incentive not to do it.
Right.
This isn't a Bible clearly. Like, I think of Job 31, where he said, I made a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully on another woman. I think of Jesus Christ saying, hey, don't lust, same as committing adultery.
Right.
And we know, okay, well, I wouldn't totally equate punishment-wise, the two, but I get what Jesus Christ is saying.
Adultery
it's leading
of the heart,
to it,
yeah.
right? It's leading to it, and so you do need to be careful of what you watch. So to me, if something comes on and I see stuff like right at the opening, there's one I was interested in the movie, but right at the opening, a girl just takes her top off, and I'm like, nah, I can't. I'm not. I turned it off. I'm like, I can't. It's like not even that I'm worried that I'm going to get per se hooked into it. It's just you just know. You know what? This is not something I want to watch. Like I just don't. This is not for me. So if you want to tell me a story or tell me some drama that I don't need that. I don't want it. So I just don't watch that stuff.
Well, there's also you could probably tell me the address in the Bible where it talks about if you clean up yourself, and if you leave that door cracked, then seven more spirits will...
Jesus Christ said that. Yeah. They
Somewhere
come
in the New
back and they
Testament,
find the house cleaned up, and they bring back seven worse than them. And,
right. So for me or anybody, if I've got a period of sobriety and I open that door back up, I could go into it way worse than I was. And in fact, when I was... So Esther and I have been married for 12 years now. And early in our marriage, my porn addiction actually led me to cross the flesh line. And that was probably about 10 and a half years ago. So it led me to places that I never thought I would go. And, it's just, so it maybe starts out as, just like for me, it started out as with the JCPenney catalog.
Right.
And, so it grows. You can't quench that monster. So that's why I don't open that door. I can't.
I would agree. I think it'd be wise for all of us to have that same mentality. I like what you said, if it's causing you to lust, then don't look at it. If you're sitting there lusting at it, thinking sexual thoughts about it as a guy, then don't be looking at it. And whether that's Sports Illustrated, whether it's the JCPenney catalog, whatever it is, just you don't need to be going down that road. And I think that's a challenge for all guys. I think.
And I think
just make sure you're not looking at that stuff.
You talk about my recovery. One of the things is that I've learned is, sometimes I'm more prone to temptation than others. And I got to think, okay, well, what's going on? What's going on in my life that is making me more drawn to that right now? And it's like, oh, okay, I got this stress with work or my marriage or, stuff like that, so.
Okay. So you have to look at some of the triggers or
lack of sleep. That's a big one for me.
Dude, I would say we get to be more to our base nature when we are not getting enough rest. That's a fact. And if somebody, even if they're impatient, they're going to tend to be more impatient when they're not sleeping right.
Exactly.
It's a fact. I've seen that over and over with people. It's like you get worn out, you get more to your base, the uglier side of you. Let's put it that way.
That's probably my biggest one, lack of sleep.
Right.
That's when, so just being aware of that stuff and, so it's not me necessarily. It's like I'm not an evil person. I've got sinful nature, but there's outside factors, past trauma, from maybe ill-advised punishments that I had from my parents back in the day, where they didn't use the best judgment, I would say.
Right.
My dad leaving, my parents getting divorced, stuff like that. It formed my, that trauma, and then my trauma response. I learned to, masturbate, go look at pornography, stuff like that.
And to take your mind off of it.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, it's an easy thing to gratify, actually. Like, I would imagine like sex addiction is just like, well, yeah, that kind of feels good at the moment. You're gratifying that, but then afterwards you feel like, feel terrible, right?
Yeah, so exactly. Full of guilt, full of shame. Right. Oh, I did it again. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I like you're kind of like heading it off at the pass, like nipping it in the bud, if you want to say it that way. It's just not opening that door, not just staying away from it completely. And I really do believe for a lot of, not just for porn addiction, I think the phones are an issue for a lot of reasons. They're distracting. And I like the phones. I like that I can look at the weather. I can look at the news. I can check my bank account and, all the cool stuff that you can do with the phone, but it can also be a time waster, and there can be a lot of information you don't really need to see. And you think about how much is accessible to us, whether just about somebody's life and they want to tell you all about it on Facebook, whether you want to hear it or not, or it's pictures. There's just, everyone has a platform today to kind of put themselves out there and information in a way that we didn't have when we were kids. So I think it's gotten worse. I think the opportunity to look at bad stuff is exponentially increased.
And you've noticed, and I've noticed, I used to watch sports event or a TV show. They're half an hour long. You sit there, and I don't need to have my mind occupied with my phone. Now I pick my phone up during the commercials, and I'm like, I scroll stuff, and then also. Before Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts, which are like maybe a minute long or shorter, there was just regular YouTube videos, and normally like 10 minutes long. So they were shorter than TV shows or a sporting event, and now they're even shorter. So it's like the brain just wants more stimulation. And so with porn addiction, I could be scrolling just a normal, maybe a political video or just or something about nature or whatever, and then my brain wants more stimulation. So that's how it used to go with the addiction. So then, how do you get the most stimulation? Well, look at pornography and then masturbate. You don't get any more stimulation than that. So there's also the brains creates pathways. And so there's a long process of changing those pathways, and there's a scientific. It's not just right and wrong. It's also there's a scientific reason not to do it. So I think if we look at that can kind of help, because it kind of takes some of the we're not focusing on the shame so much. It's not just because it's bad why I shouldn't do it. It's not good for my brain.
So if you're saying you're wiring yourself to look at it, wiring yourself for instant gratification, so on and so forth, obviously that can have detrimental impacts in the real world.
Right.
Right. And that after a while, you've got yourself so used to that you have to unwire yourself or rewire somehow your own thinking and your own.
Well, I have this image in my head. It's just kind of like I picture a path, and I picture another path going off, and that's like the path of addiction. And now I see where that path was, but it's got, there's like vines overgrown, and I haven't gone down that path, but I can still see where it is. And so I have to know, and I have to understand, because one of the lies of the enemy is, if I say I go without a week or two without porn, I'm like, I'm good, I got this, and I haven't had any accountability. I'm not reaching out to anybody, and then I come back to porn. So I have to understand in recovery that path it's still there, and I have to understand how I could get there, and that's why I need accountability, and that's why I seek accountability. And one other thing I want to say about the group that we talked about, and that I'm going to be starting in the soon. I don't remember what I was
you want
say.
to talk about your wife helping too, people.
Yeah.
You were going to throw that one in there.
Right. Yeah. So, so she's available. If you reach out to me, or I don't know if we can maybe put her contact out there, her contact information.
Yeah. I mean, as we get going, we could say, hey, when you see her in church, if you want to approach her, I mean, you're certainly allowed to do that. So.
Yeah, so there's a lot of wives out there that they maybe are blindsided with this stuff, and they don't know where to go. So she's available as a resource for women to talk to,
right.
And then maybe someday she'll start a group. So.
Right. No, I think that's all great information. One verse that I've always liked on anything that you go through is Ephesians 4 and 22 through 24. And this is a great passage because it's put off, put on. And sometimes you got to put off the old before you can really put on the new. So you got to put off impurity before you're going to put on purity. And it's like just a changeover. And you have to constantly remind yourself when you're thinking, don't think that way. Like anytime a thought, like a lustful image would come up, replace it with something else, whatever you would choose. If you want to see Jesus, a picture of Jesus, whatever, I imagine it wouldn't really matter. But it says, put off your old self, which belongs to your former manner of life and is corrupt. There's deceitful desires. And one thing you recognize, like in your story and others, I don't care what people say and how glorifying they want to make fans only or porn or sex work. I really honestly think that there's an element of the society that wants to normalize all of it.
Oh, yeah.
That this is normal, that a teacher should be allowed to strip down on fans. Am I saying that? Fans? OnlyFans. Okay, OnlyFans. And strip down there and that be normal. Now, right now in society, in the states where this has happened, these people are getting fired.
Right.
I can see a day coming where it gets so justified. No, that's fine. You know what I mean? If they want to do that and still be a teacher and have all these unwholesome things, where I like how this verse spells it out. Listen, this stuff's corrupt.
Yeah. It's
deceitful. So then he goes on to say, and to be renewed in the spirit of your minds. And one thing about porn addiction, you've got to change your thinking about it. Any sin. It doesn't matter what the sin. We sin because we like the sin.
Right.
People sin because they like the feeling of alcohol. If they're an alcoholic, they like the feeling that they get. If they're a heroin addict, they like the feeling they get.
Drawn to it, yeah.
They are. And they start to crave it, and their body craves it. And now it becomes a medical, scientific thing because it's you biologically, however you want to say it, physically are drawn, like your body's just screaming out for this stuff, right? Yeah. And that's a dangerous thing. But they say you got to be renewed in the spirit of your mind and to put on the new self, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness. And I like that. Yeah, you got to look at it as what I'm putting on. Is this righteous? Is this holy? Is this helping to be more like God? And that would rule out the entire porn industry.
Right.
A lot of these people they're underage, they're sex trafficked.
Yep.
There's all kinds of horrible things that are happening to these people while they do it. They're really not making money. It's not as glamorous and glorious as what people make it out to be. It's not. It's corrupt. It's wrong. So you got to realize, hey, that's like a dirty shirt. Like I got to get that off. And I think that's the first step for people in overcoming any kind of addiction is realizing it's wrong.
Right.
Now you had that. You were realizing
but
that.
as you were saying, like, society, some people, if I talk to people in the mainstream and I say, I had an issue with pornography, and they're like, well, what's wrong with that? But that's why I think it's important to sometimes even look past the morality issue. Yes, it's wrong, but there's also an issue that it's not healthy. It's not healthy for our brains. It's not healthy to be addicted to anything. It's not healthy to look at images like that,
or to look at women as objects.
Right.
That's not right.
And again, like I said, with the the brain wanting more stimulation, it's not gonna just it's gonna grow more often than not.
Right.
It's not just gonna stop at Sports Illustrated. It's gonna go from that to
it's like rust on a car. If you don't take care of a spot of rust, it's getting bigger.
Yes.
When does rust ever get smaller? Like, hey, I had some rust on my car, but I looked around, it just went away. It doesn't just go away. And I think these are the kind of things. No, it doesn't go away. It says in the Bible, you have to put it off. And you got to put on the new man. Yeah. You can't just put off, because that was the verse you were talking about where the demons come back. So the guy cleaned the house. Yeah, he cleaned the house, and then even more demons come into him because he didn't put anything else in there. It was an empty house, right? So you got to, once you're cleaning that stuff out, you got to fill it with, let's say the Word of God or accountability or a Bible study like this or group. What is the name of this group, by the way?
So I've been thinking of the names, but I think we're going to go with Men's Freedom Group.
Okay, great. All right, so for this Men's Freedom Group that you're doing, which we're excited about, so you can come there, and that's part of putting on. Like I'm actually like putting on the new man. I'm getting new. I'm filling my time with something that's productive. I'm going to be doing a Bible study. I'm going to be putting that kind of stuff into my thinking rather than sitting around looking at chicks.
And I wanted to, I guess maybe could have shared this in the other podcast, but talk about the structure of the group. So my vision is that we're going to have we got a workbook, and we'll go through that. So we'll have an assignment, and we'll go over that assignment for the first however many minutes, half hour. And then for the last hour, this was always, and I know a lot of men are afraid to come to, maybe afraid's not the right word, but just, the fear of the unknown to come to a group like this and put yourself out there. But over time, I actually looked forward to coming to the group, because after that, the first half hour, that was when, like I said, talk about the assignment, and that's when I would talk and make a point to say something about it. But then I have a time, whether it's like 10 minutes or whatever, that's my time to share whatever is going on in my life. And we used an acronym, FINAS, FINAS. And I don't know, sometimes as men, like communicating isn't, or talking about our feelings isn't really a natural thing. So I would always use that acronym. So FINAS was F for feelings. So what am I feeling? Like, am I feeling anxious right now? Issues, what's going on in my life right now? Needs, what do I need right now? Assignment, did I do the assignment? And then S is sobriety. How long have I been sober? And sobriety is not just, it's not one size fits all. Sobriety can be different for other people. So it's really being true to myself and true to God, knowing what that is, sobriety. So that's kind of the overview of the group. And like I said, just having that safe space to share, and really, it's just not something that we do often as men, is share, talk about our feelings or talk about what's going on. So, that was huge for me.
Right. Well, I'm glad that you've overcome, and really, I know it's never one and done. It's overcoming. You're constantly overcoming, constantly battling, constantly making sure you're staying on the right path. Right. So I appreciate your commitment to that, and also a commitment to helping other people, which I think is important. It says in Psalm 51 where David was really ashamed of his sin with Bathsheba, and he was thanking God for, covering over his sins. But then he talks about teaching sinners the right way. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing, right? I want to spend my time, now that I've overcome, I'm going to put my time into profitable things and helping others to overcome as I have overcome. So I think that's an important part of growth and discipleship and how God wants us to live.
We're not perfect people. We all have some kind of issues. We've all sinned. We've all fallen short of the glory of God. And, we just really need each other. And, I am grateful that I found a group when I was living in Florida that, so here's the thing. I was going to a men's group, and I shared there, my struggles, but I realized I needed something a little bit more, something that, was more focused on that. So, so then I started going to that, and, like I've said, I wouldn't be where I'm at without that.
If you didn't, well, anything that we do, and it doesn't matter if it's fitness, getting in physical shape, spiritual shape, overcoming something like this, you got to take the first step.
Yeah.
And a great first step could be showing up here on March 20th at 7 o'clock if you're struggling with that issue. So we appreciate you being a part of this podcast and hearing it and listening to it. Feel free to share it, comment on it, like it, get hold of us. We'll make sure that Jay's contact information is in there. So if you have questions about that, if you want to just show up, you can just show up. But
I'll be there. Don't make me be by myself, please.
Right. We will make sure you are not. Anyway, we appreciate you tuning in. Have a great and an awesome week.